Alright, so, hey guys, MJTR with Halfway Beret, here with you again, and here we finally are. This is the big one. I've done a couple of readings of my old material for the channel at this point, but all of those were kind of done in service of, alright, am I eventually going to do this one? Or these three, because this is the first entry in a trilogy. There's definitely a temptation to sit here and talk at great length about what this is and why this is and all of the emotions attached to it and business like that. But I'm gonna try and not do too much of that. Let the work for it speak for itself. If you want to read it on AO3, you can read these stories with huge swaths of annotations by me breaking down just about everything I remember about the process. So that's an option if anybody wants it. But so here we are. This is going to be the start of my reading of the first Angel of the Bat story, which I wrote back from 2014 to 2015. This comes from the kind of launching point of this came from an old blog post by comic writer Gail Simone. I've talked about this other places, but like the quick version was DC editorial came to her and said, we need something new to do with Cassandra Cain. Do you have any propositions? And Gail Simone suggested, I want her to have this kind of religious experience. I want her to be brought over kind of into this religious situation. Gail Simone, by her own admission, a secular person herself, kind of thought religious characters were kind of all assholes in comic books at the time, and that it would be nice to have someone a little bit more positive, doing the religious thing. She proposed that she take the title of Angel of the Bat, which is a mouthful, but I've wanted to honor that myself and all that business. And it was one of those things that I read that and I was like, that that hit me close as like a, you know, as a religious person myself who, who likes getting into the minutia, who likes getting into, what it can do to people for better or for worse. Because, definitely, and especially, in the world in which we live, there are countless instances I see of people whose religious convictions, kind of drive them to cruelty and all of that. So this is a story that's both, examines faith as it, does it ultimately kind of makes you more of what you kind of were feeling anyway in a lot of ways is what this story is about. That, a good person fueled by faith that comes from a good place, I think, you get something stronger out of that. But if you have a person who's kind of been pushed towards wickedness and have a wicked, outlook on faith, it'll amplify that. And it can work in the opposite directions too, but this particular story, it kind of had that as the thesis that faith reveals a lot about who we are and what we believe and how you know we can use it to justify our own ideals, we and claim that we believe this thing because of the Bible when really we believe in a lot of cases we believe Bible because we already believe this thing and we use it as justification. Business like that. Um, Over this last decade in which I've been here doing this material, Cassandra Cain has really become a truly beloved character to me, both for what she is in the comic books and what this version of the character is that I got to put my own spin on and use it to really kind of resolve some of my own feelings and you know build out from there. Do my own, figure out my own stuff in my personal life, use it to write and tell stories that I hoped would be meaningful to people. And I've heard from people who this was a meaningful adventure to, and that moves my heart. That feels amazing, and I love it. So, um, that's kind of the quick and dirty version of what this is. I've thought over the years that maybe I would like to do a full cast reading of it, for Halfway Beret, like when we used to do, full cast readings of stuff of comic books and whatnot. But ultimately, I was just like, that sounds really arduous. That, and I don't know. I've gotten a lot more hesitant about pulling other people into my projects that might not ever see completion these days. So I'd rather it kind of just be me operating. So that's the form that this one's going to take. And, if ever there's something more, well, I guess we'll address that when it comes along. Um, it's always been my feeling that, like, I'm not here to write the story that Gail Simone would have written. I don't think I think I would need more information before I could even try to do that. We can extrapolate from our other work. We can, kind of draw our own conclusions to what might have been aimed for if we, read a lot of Gail Simone, and I read a good amount of Gail Simone, and I try to, homage her in various ways and across various points in the story. But ultimately, this is me taking that pitch and me doing my particular thing with it, and you know, um, bringing an idea that could have been into being in my own small way. So that's what this is. This is, a Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, a Batman, whatever you want to call it. This is that story of, of faith, of conflict, of friendship, and later on in the series, even of love that, has meant so much to me. I have literally made friendships off of this story at this point. That's pretty cool to say. And it's brought me a healthier outlook on my own religious feelings and character writing and all kinds of other cool stuff. So again, I keep trying to draw this thing out. That's what I've got. That's what this is. It meant a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you. Let's get started. Angel of the Bat, based on prompt by Gail Simone, written and read by MJTR. It began on a standard night's patrol. No big breakouts, no new faces of crime, nothing special. A miniature poodle bound out of Gotham City General Hospital just after 3 a.m. The end of his leash brought him to a jerking stop right outside the automatic doors. He needed to wait for his master to catch up. His master was a portly old man dressed in black. A white collar covered his neck, and he held an umbrella at his side, though the rain settled since he first arrived. Most of his hair was lost with age, but he dutifully kept what little remained in a gray comb-over. He didn't bring his wallet out to that excursion, so he couldn't hail a taxi, but the rectory was only a few blocks away. As he guided his dog along the streets, the old man turned at a shout from a nearby alley. "Hey, Pops!" A young man sat against a dumpster and held out a plastic cup. "Spare some change?" He smiled, pulled the dog's leash, entered the alley, and knelt before the young man. "I'm afraid I didn't bring my wallet this evening, but I might be able to help you anyway. If you..." That was as far as he got. The smashing sound of a baseball bat crashed against the old man's back interrupted him. He yelled in pain as he hit the ground. The dog barked, snarled, and tried its best to compensate for its size as the one of the bats stepped into the center of the alley. His companion, seated against the dumpster, flashed a grin as he pushed to his feet. "Sorry there, minister," he chuckled, "but you of all people probably know angel dust doesn't come easy. You spend all night on that one?" His compatriot began frisking the old man's pockets. "What the hell? He really didn't bring anything with him? Oh, come on!" The man with the cup stepped forward as the dog continued to bark. "He didn't look like one of those live-in-poverty types." With anger tinging their argument, neither man noticed as a shadow overhead looked down upon them. "What the hell are you talking about? And hey, dog, keep it down!" The dog made a lunge and dug its teeth into the uncovered leg of the man with the cup. He let out a yell and tried to shake it off as his friend clutched his baseball bat tighter. "Should have kept your dog on a shorter leash, old man." As his partner kicked the dog off his leg, he continued, "Let's hope all dogs go to heaven, huh?" Before he took a swing, the shadow made its descent. A figure in black jumped from the rooftop and landed on the armed one's back, knocked him to the ground, and kicked the bat out of his reach. His partner shouted something, though it wasn't clear what. He threw a punch at the figure in black, but it caught the attack, kicked him in the stomach, and punched him in the face, seemingly knocking him unconscious before he hit the ground. The old man pushed onto his knees, wiped at his dirtied face, and grabbed his dog's leash. The figure, who he could identify as female, put out her hand. "Come." The man was on his way up before he yelled, "Behind you!" She anticipated that when the man with the bat got back up. Without releasing the old man's hand, she curved herself to the side, kicked the assailant in the face, and knocked him back to the ground. When the old man was on his feet, she grabbed and twisted the perp's arm, until the scream that came with a bone close to cracking filled the alley. "Enough!" She turned to the old man and settled a little as he spoke. In surprise, she loosened her grip. "If you can, please, help me back to the hospital," he said. The figure nodded, went to his side to give him support, and pulled him upwards again. One of the old man's hands kept firmly on the leash, while the other gripped her utility belt for support. "My cell phone. It's in my right pocket. Could you hand it to me?" She retrieved the phone, then scooped up the dog with her free hand and motioned for him that it was all right to let go of the leash. With his hands freed, he dialed 911, and when he received an answer, said, "I need to speak with Gotham Emergency. There's 2 men laying beaten in an alley on 34th Street. This was the first thing to happen that surprised the figure in black. She would have put in a word to the police that 2 criminals were awaiting arrest, but this man called that they be taken care of, first and foremost. The young woman's name was Cassandra Cain, but in that uniform she operated as Batgirl. Garbed entirely in black except for the yellows of her belt and the outline of a bat that adorned her front. Still holding on to the old man for support, she led him to the hospital. Cassandra did not usually see victims through after bringing them to safety, but the night had already been relatively quiet, and the old man intrigued her since he insisted on making the call. After the preliminary screenings found he had not broken any bones, the priest was admitted into a room. A plucky nurse chuckled as he entered. "And you and Snowball just left this wing, Father Ryan," she said. "You took 1 step outside and wound up right back in." She turned toward Batgirl and continued to laugh. "Looks like God sent you a very special angel to get you here all right, didn't he?" Batgirl wondered for a moment why she called the man father before he laughed and replied, "The Lord works in mysterious ways, Kathy." "Now, when morning comes, you'll have to call somebody," the nurse says. "I know Snowball won't bring anyone here any trouble, but it's hospital policy, you know?" Of course. A few days' rest and I'll be back on my feet." Father Ryan looked toward Batgirl then. "Kathy, could you give us a moment?" "Oh, certainly. You just call if you need anything." The 2 were soon left alone. The old man said, "I didn't have much of a chance to thank you properly." "Why did she call you father?" Batgirl asked. Father Ryan smiled. "She's a member of my congregation. My name is George Ryan, Monsignor." Monsignor. Batgirl tried to sound the word out, unsure of its meaning. "I take it you aren't Catholic, then?" He still smiled. Batgirl was sure she knew of that word, but was unsure where. She decided to press on. "Why did you call the hospital?" "I wanted to be sure those 2 received care as soon as it would come. I am very glad you saved me, but I want to make sure they make a full recovery." Batgirl didn't usually stick around after a rescue, but was sure most people she saved didn't harbor such goodwill toward their assailants. "Could have killed you. And maybe after tonight they will know they shouldn't do such things again," Father Ryan said. "We all stray from the path sometimes, but we all deserve the chance to find it again." Batgirl felt perplexed by this line of thinking. Most of Gotham thought of the criminals of the city as below them, a species apart, to be captured and put away forever. Even if he insisted otherwise, sometimes it was hard to believe Batman didn't think much the same way. That the battle on crime seemed more about caging animals than securing people in the hopes of reform.
She didn't want to linger on those thoughts, and quickly said, "I must go." "Wait!" Father Ryan pointed toward the clothes he came in wearing that were replaced with hospital scrubs. "My left pocket. Please, I don't have much to offer you, but I hope you'll take it as a little token of my appreciation. Snowball and I are so grateful." Batgirl went to his pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a large beaded necklace, a small T shape on the bottom with a man etched into it. "Take one of my cards, too," Father Ryan said. "I'd be happy to see you again. Perhaps out of costume next time?" Batgirl pulled out one of the cards marked Monsignor George Ryan, St. Michael's Cathedral, Gotham City. "You won't recognize me," she said. "That's all right," Father Ryan replied. "We get newcomers all the time. Maybe I'll have to treat every one of them as if they just saved my life." And he began to laugh again. With the strange necklace and one of the cards tucked into her utility belt, Cassandra made her way out. She remained perplexed by this man's happiness and methodology, but decided she would like to see him again.